I now call this regular meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Director Pasha, would you please read the board priorities?
Priorities. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students and our community.
Thank you. Director Beck, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Our mission statement: enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. The vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you please read the goals we'll be going over tonight?
It is the expectation of the board that district finance issues are resolved and staff will continue to keep the district in compliance with all state reporting mandates.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that Director Potts is not in the building tonight, but he is participating remotely. And also on the discussion items, we're going to be changing that up. We're going to move up subject 12.07, the FAST scores. That will be our first item that we will discuss, because I know we have some people here in the building, so we won't make you hang out for the whole thing. No recognitions tonight. We will move on to presentations. Superintendent Schneckloff.
Thank you. Well, our first presentation tonight is somewhat of a recognition. Davenport Schools is very proud to have Impact Life with us at tonight's meeting. So I would welcome up Miss Holly Yates to the microphone to kind of talk to us a little bit about and present to us a little bit about an award that Davenport Schools was nominated for. So thank you for coming today. And first of all, we want to recognize the very important work that you do in our community. It's thankless, but at the end of the day, you save lives. And everybody that I run into at Impact Life, particularly, Ms. Yates, you care so much about our community and our people inside of our community, and all you want to do is help. And to be partnered with an organization that does that is just an incredible, it's incredible for us, and we're very thankful. So with that being said, I'll turn the microphone over. Thank you.
Check, check. All right, we're live. Holly and I always have this where we go speak places and the microphones are at the wrong level for the two of us because she's so tall. Thank you. I'm a parent in the district. I think you all are doing important work too. I've got a daughter who's a Davenport Central grad and one daughter coming into her sophomore year next year. So thank everyone for your work and service for the district. Impact Life is the provider, I always underline that, the provider of blood components for hospitals here in our Quad Cities region and beyond. I'm the public relations manager. I'm sorry I did not introduce myself. I'm Kirby Wynn. I work with Holly on the public relations side, whereas Lori is on the donor relations or recruitment side. We used to go by a different name, Mississippi Valley Regional Blood Center, and established under that name in 1974 here in Davenport. So been doing work here in the community for a long time. And as I've worked at the Blood Center, and certainly Holly experiences this, school blood drives are so important. We've learned, of course, schools are a place where we can introduce the concept of blood donation as a service learning opportunity, and we see how much schools are just filled with community-minded, service-oriented individuals, whether we're talking students, parents, administration, or teachers. Unfortunately, we lose most of our school blood drives from our collection calendar this time of year, right? We hit summer, June, July, and August. There they go off the calendar for a bit. Davenport Community School District is an exception to that. Many of the exceptional things in your work with us include 2 upcoming blood drives with the district, so thank you. I do want to now turn it over to Holly, who's got the details on her nomination that she wrote for the Association of Donor Relations Professionals, one of our national umbrella organizations, to recognize the great work that you all do with the Blood Center.
Davenport Schools has been partnering with us since about 1988 and has collected tens of thousands of units, just over 10,000 in the last decade. And blood donation, of course, is important, but there are other key strategies that the school district has worked with us. We're going to watch a video in here just a little bit that TAG produced to highlight the importance of blood donation and that partnership. But some key things I wanted the board to know too is we've worked with the school district in iron mitigation and understanding what blood donation and leveling out iron levels for teenage donors, the importance behind that. Dr. Katz led that initiative. You guys might know him as a Scott County Health Director. He is also our medical director, and I don't know if you guys know this, but he's also a graduate of Davenport Schools. Also, we have worked with the schools on a Ready to Work program. Part of that went into a pause during pandemic, but Mr. Schneckloth and appropriate staff will be coming in shortly. So we can talk about an apprenticeship program for phlebotomy. So activities such as that rose to the occasion. When we stood back and looked at our schools across our 4-state region, Davenport Schools stood out for all the great work in blood donation, but some of those other factors that are going to make a difference in students' lives moving forward. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the video that was played at our national conference, and like I said, it was put together by TAG.
You know, when you do something that's not for yourself and when you do something for a stranger, you don't ever expect to be rewarded for that. It's the highest level of integrity that you could possibly have. For that to then come back and be shared with our community is a real celebration of hard work and decision making in a very difficult time.
ADRP is an international organization inside of ABC, America's Blood Centers, and every year they pick partners that kind of rise to the occasion, whether that be Media Partner of the Year, Blood Drive Coordinator of the Year. We wanted to take a look at a school district that continued to be a pivotal partner for us throughout pandemic, and we really felt that Davenport Schools tapped into different ways of hosting than your traditional let us come into the school.
You know, one of the things that the pandemic taught us was how to very creatively problem solve in one of the most difficult environments. And when that need came about, our students, our staff members, our families, they rose to the occasion. And they met every guideline that we put in place with a smile on their face, and our students showed up and our faculty were there to help support the initiative, to help support that donation, and that says a lot about the students and families and faculty in Davenport Community School District.
When Wesley was diagnosed with leukemia, they start with an induction phase that's really, really harsh on the body. 7 to 10 bags of blood and probably 10 to 12 bags of platelets. That all came from donors. And so without those, he would have, those were life-saving.
Everything down for when it happened. I was coaching basketball at the time. They made those orange Wesley shorts for us right away. They helped out a ton. The school helped out a ton with us. All the people that are helping us and helped us out, it was really great, to be honest.
I think one of the best things that we can do, I think one of the reasons why we're here on this earth is to look out for each other and to help others and to put other people first. And I think through the donation process, I think that's exactly what we do. We try to take something that is as simple as giving a little bit of your time, and that's free of charge, trying to make that into a magical moment for families where their loved ones can receive the products they need and give it back to our community, so we kind of keep the cycle going in our community of donating to others and putting others first.
This really wasn't about students getting out of class anymore. This was a bigger picture of how do we care for our neighbors. And so to have the district really stand behind and have students and families and faculty and administration come into our donor center, it just really proved to us that Davenport Community Schools was committed to that greater mission of what we do. Thank you, Mike and team. We shared this at our national conference, and the folks in the industry just love the piece and what it spoke about. I want to share with you guys, Wesley turns 4 today. The Harper family also lost their father to cancer during Wesley's cancer battle. And even though Mr. Harper passed, they were given more time with the family. He was able to meet his grandson. And Wesley, like I said, turns 4 today. So the work that you do, if you've donated, thank you. But just the work that you do as a district puts blood products in front of families such as those every single day. So thank you. Dr. Gosa was unable to make it to Arizona, but on behalf of Impact Life, Kirby Wynn, our manager, Teresa Gottschalk is our regional manager for the Davenport area, and Beth Hancock works directly with some of the high schools here. So we'd like to present this award to the district.
All right, we're.
Smile.
Just on behalf of the Davenport Community School District, thank you so much. It's a great honor for that recognition, and again, thank you for your partnership. As somebody that received products during the pandemic, your work is very important, so thank you.
Would anyone from the board like to comment? So I was actually supposed to fly to Phoenix to receive this award. I got held up in an airport in Wichita, and there were some issues with the plane, and then I would have got into Denver late, and so I didn't get to make it. So thank you very much. Thank you all for putting together the video, and sometimes air travel doesn't work out, but I spent a lot of time in the airport for it, though, so. Thank you all for partnering with the district. Mike and Tag, thanks for the awesome video. You guys made TJ look great. All right, you ready for the next one?
So we have a special presentation night by the Lions Club. So I invite the Lions Club up to the podium tonight to talk about an initiative called Kids Sight. So thank you guys for joining us today, and thank you for all the work that you do in our schools, the thankless work. So thank you for being here tonight.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Lyle Miller, president of the Davenport Village Lions Club. Thank you for allowing us time on your agenda to present a Lions Service Award, the Warren Coleman Honorary Award, to each of several very deserving nurses who are employees of the Davenport school system. These awards represent our appreciation of the excellent and devoted work these nurses do as part of the Iowa KidSight program, a Lions-sponsored service project which offers free eyesight screening to Iowa children who are 6 years old and under. Simply stated, the Iowa KidSight program could not function as efficiently as it does without school nurses, and we recognize that our award recipients are some of the best at doing what's required. For those who may not be familiar with the Iowa KidSight program, we invited Mrs. Lori Short, manager of the Iowa KidSight program, to present a few statements about the history and success of the KidSight program. She was scheduled to travel here from her home in Iowa City. She called this morning to say that her husband was diagnosed yesterday with COVID, so she's now homebound. Our secretary, Mr. Andrew Plain, a 33-plus year member of our club and a multiple recipient of the Warren Coleman Award, has volunteered to present some of Lori's information, which I think you'll find interesting. Andy?
Thanks, Lyle, and thank you all for allowing us to come today. Iowa KidSight is a project of the Lions Clubs of Iowa and the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. KidSight is dedicated to enhancing the early detection and treatment of vision impairments in young children through screening and public education. Our club started KidSight in 2003. In Iowa, it started in 2000. We were a little slow in catching the ball there. But since 2000, 608,000 children have been screened in Iowa. Of that, 38,882 were referred, which means they had eye problems. After that fact, when we get the note back that says they have eye problems, they're referred to their local eye doctor. If one is not available, the Lions will come up with somebody and we'll make arrangements for that. Follow-up is key to our program. There are now 113 sites in Davenport that we go to, including the school district. Okay? I got this sent to me at noon today to fill in, so I'm going as best I can. The neat thing about our program is there's no cost to anybody who comes in, and we're all volunteers that run it. So basically, for $10 a child, we're able to screen a child, find out if there's a problem, and get it taken care of. A successful KidSight program requires dedication of Iowa Lions who take the screening images, and dedication of school nurses to help organize, collect parental consent. They make a huge difference in making this program work for us. Thank you and congratulations on this well-deserved recognition. So Lyle, you want to come back up and we'll present those?
Thank you very much, Andy. Just a few comments about the Warren Coleman Honorary Award, which has been earned by these three very special nurses. I should say 4 very special nurses. This award is available for presentation to a deserving individual for either of 2 reasons: in recognition of his or her exemplary involvement in facilitating a Lions service project, or in recognition of a very significant financial donation to the Iowa Lions Foundation. Incidentally, and I got this from Lori this morning, the Iowa Lions Foundation currently provides 48% of the total funding required for this year for the Iowa KidSight program. Normally, the award is presented to Lions members. However, this year, we decided and we chose to recognize individuals from outside our organization, individuals who have demonstrated unique devotion and exceptional leadership in that Lions affiliated service activity known as the Iowa KidSite program. Those individuals are the nurses assembled here tonight. We believe that this recognition and these awards are long overdue. We also believe that there are other nurses throughout Iowa deserving of similar recognition. Certain in the accuracy of our beliefs, we will be encouraging other Lions clubs to make similar presentations to deserving nurses across the state of Iowa. But this evening belongs to our 4 recipients who are, in no particular order, Janice Teldrow, Victoria Reyes, Julie Kenyon, and Lynn Smith. Unfortunately, Lynn cannot be here tonight, so to accept your award, we have Ms. Jean Ekstrom, head nurse of the Davenport Community School District. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we're done, unless they want a picture. Sure.
Take a picture.
Right up here.
Okay.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Good job.
Great job.
Okay, we're good.
Would any board members like to make any comments? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. No student board reports because they're enjoying being out of school. Board reports. Are there any board reports? Director Postian?
I know we haven't had a meeting for a while, but back on May 26th, I attended the ESL Family Night at the West High Cafeteria. And I'd like to thank the ESL staff for their enthusiasm and dedication. And then the same night, right across the hall, I attended the West High Band Awards program and their final concert.
Director Hayes?
I'd like to extend a special thank you to a few people, Mr. John Flynn, President Gosa, Director Beck, Superintendent Schneckloff, basically the whole board. At graduation, you guys were just awesome. assisting me to make sure that I could get around. It's, odd to have something like that where you can watch it over and over on YouTube. And I had a lady call me today. Oh, how's that leg doing? Oh, God, how'd you know we didn't talk? Oh, I saw it on YouTube. I was at graduation. But still, thank you all for being so kind and making sure I got around with my walker and my brace and was able to attend graduation. And again, on another note, the board would like to extend our deepest sympathy to the Klein Jerome family in the loss of Director Klein Jerome's father. So we all want you to know that we're praying for you and you have our deepest sympathy.
Any other board reports? I don't know if it's really a report. Obviously, we just got done with graduations last weekend. Huge thank you to the Davenport Police Department for helping direct traffic down there in front of the Adler, shutting the roads off and things like that, so we're able to get things done in the city, and as well as the folks at the Adler for helping us out with that. If there are no other board reports, we will move on to communications. Open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website. For those who want to participate virtually, virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings laws prohibit action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Was there any virtual ones? None? All right, no open forum requests tonight. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. Approval of bills. May I have a motion on subject 8.01?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move the board approve the following resolution. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the treasurer, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of May 18th through June 7th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. Superintendent report.
None at this time.
Committee reports. You got anything to report on your data wall?
I'm going to defer to Superintendent Sneckler.
We are ready to establish another meeting as we have data points, we have acceptable technology. So in the upcoming future, we will be scheduling another data meeting. I see Gary, and Gary, we were guessing while you were on vacation that was an approximate size for us to see, correct? Okay, great. We guessed that while you were on vacation. So we now know the district-wide data points that we would like to look at. We had every building review their data points that were connected to that. So now we have a really clear idea of how to move forward with that. We'll be scheduling another meeting soon. Thank you.
Finance Committee? Okay, thank you. Legislative advocacy. We haven't done anything lately. We're working on getting the city council meeting set up.
Last week, Mike and I began to strategize when to place those in terms of our long-range facility plan. And so we talked about scheduling those appropriately for those to help facilitate the conversation in the fall, I believe it is.
Okay, perfect. LZAC.
We are on hiatus for the summer.
Policy Committee.
We have a workshop to try and come up with the educational philosophy and mission statement of the district, facilitated by TAG, scheduled for next week.
Thank you. As far as long-range facilities goes, we haven't had a meeting with Director Potts being out of commission, as well as I think there was a couple issues on the Bray side of things. So we're doing it, this Friday will be our meeting. Yes, sir.
Just a question on that. Will the board receive some kind of timeline here in the near future? It seems like things have kind of slowed down, and I think we need to keep pushing the effort.
So what they're working on right now is the pathways that the committee, or the bigger committee with the community members and teachers came up with, and they're working through the cabinet to see how all that'll kind of tie in, and then we'll have a presentation on that, on what that'll look like. So it should be here. It should be here shortly. Go ahead.
So to piggyback on that, the timeline we have established for June and July, and those are community forums, Friends of Davenport's board presentation. So we have that established right now, and the invites are being sent. I will forward that to the board for the most recent timeline. And the cabinet has been working on the pathways. So last week, 2 times we met with Bray to dig in and begin to review the data and the pathways to bring forward to the board. So there's been a lot of work on that in the last couple of weeks. So if that helps.
There was, it might have been in one of your reports, so it was mentioned that finalizing things by spring of 2023. Now, the original timeline that I remember was that there would be something more definite here in the summer of 2022. If it's pushed back to 2023, I'm concerned from our financial aspect that we're not moving quick enough.
Thank you.
I think that's all the committees. I think I hit them all. All right. We will move on to items requiring action. May I have a motion on subject 11.01?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board renewal of the litter service offered through Lexia ESSER funds has been requested to cover the cost of a 1-year renewal, which amounts to $166,500.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Is there any discussion?
I have a question before we renew this. After this year, if we approve this, we will have information that shows us whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. So by the next renewal, we'll know this? Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Director Potts, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
All right. Motion's been made by Director Hayes, seconded by Director Beck. I will call for the vote. Director Beck? Okay. I'll drag it out. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Director Hayes made the motion. Director Hayes. That's why you're looking at me. Director Beck?
Yes.
All right. Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.02?
Mr. President,
Director Beck?
I move the board approve a one-year contract extension to the contract with Riverbend Transit for specialized school bus transportation for fiscal year 22-23.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Both say it, then. I'll get that one to Director Gordon. All right. Is there any discussion on it? Director Beck?
I thought I remembered this being longer than a one-year contract, or do we typically do a one-year contract with them?
Everything right now is 1 year.
Okay, that's fine. It just slipped my mind. I couldn't find my notes. Thank you.
Director Potts, did you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.03?
Mr. Chairman,
Director Postian?
move the board approve the MOU between the Davenport Schools and Family Resources to support the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of students and families.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Is there any discussion? Director Beck?
I did have a couple questions from people about making sure that our counseling department was included in this decision. So I was wondering if Superintendent Schneckloth could address that, or Dr. Klipsch.
Yeah, so, and I apologize, I wasn't here for the initial discussion last week. This came out of one of our high schools, principal requesting support in this area. So from there, we took this to our district's leadership team, which included Lisa Baxter, our program director for this area, and representatives from all the buildings, and also then took that information to each principal meeting to get all their feedback. The part that I will own on this, because we did not directly go to counselors, is that I probably could have been more direct with principals to say, hey, now make sure to take this back to other stakeholders within your building. So the short answer to that is no, I did not personally meet with counselors in this, but did have a lot of different conversations in the development of the plan.
And everybody's aware and on board at this point, though. Okay. That's all I need. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.04?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the lowest responsive bid of Economy Roofing in the amount of $362,700 for completion of the North High School gym roof repair project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Potts. Is there any discussion? Mr. Mansky, I'm going to ask this one more time so it's on the record. It was apples to apples on the bids. Each person bid it for the same material, 15-year material, or
25-year material. Yeah.
what's that?
They were all given the same specs. Same
25-year material?
Yep. Same
Okay.
sheets, same requirements for each company. So they had the same things to look at. So
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.05?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move the board approve the lowest responsive bid of Blackhawk Roofing in the amount of $1,876,664 for completion of the Davenport Learning Center gym roof repair project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Director Postian?
Just a question on the last bid. It talked about reusing the insulation, and I don't see any mention of that on this bid. Can you explain that?
ask me the question again.
Okay, on the North High gym, it said that they were going to reuse the insulation on the roof.
Okay. On this bid, it didn't say it. You're saying?
No. So is there a difference in the roofs, or
It's a difference in the material and what damage was done from the storm damage that had caused the issues. So sometimes you need to replace it, sometimes you don't. And in this case, the insulation was still considered good and reusable.
Okay. So, but on the North High gym, that's not a problem reusing that insulation then?
Yeah, we met up on the roof of the buildings and actually looked at it with the architects and the insurance company to verify what could be reused and what couldn't be reused. In both cases.
Any other discussion? And just so everyone knows, it's not like fiberglass insulation laying on a roof. It's that thick foam, just in case anybody was wondering about that.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.06?
Mr. President,
Director Klein Jerome?
I move the board approve the board secretary's compensation package as previously presented to the board and discussed in closed session. The pay increase is made retroactive to March 1st, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.07? What's that? Oh, I apologize. We need to watch the video first. Thanks, Brenda. and give them a wave. Give them a wave. And now, parents and family members, go ahead, come on. While they're looking for the video for Mid-City, a little background on this. Last year we started a new tradition at graduation with the Traveling Trophy Award. What it is during my speech during graduations, we'll have the students stand up and then their family members acknowledge them, and we'll see whoever has the loudest and proudest graduating family there. Whichever school is the loudest gets the trophy with their school and class year engraved on the side of the trophy, and that school will get the trophy for that year, and then it'll come back for the next year's graduation. It's been way more than anything I ever anticipated when we did it the first year. The families really get involved in it, and it's nice to let them kind of let all that out for their graduates and let their graduates hear it. And I think we had discussed putting together like some kind of clips on this and going at the beginning of the school year. And actually one of the things that Corey Williams said during her graduation speech made me think of trying to do something with it. What was it? Something about that. Yeah, the tassel's worth the hassle, and try to tagline that, and then, you know, let the kids know this is what you're waiting for at the end of the year. This is what all that hard work's for, that all these people appreciate what you're doing. And then the board, like right now, will vote on which school we think got it, and then that school will get, I think they're all like on, so we don't have it. Okay. We are having issues finding the Mid-City one, but I do want to say they were very loud and proud of their graduates as well. As awesome. I think they're even louder than they were last year. So that's the background on the award. And I'm trying to think of how I need to do this. I probably need to go around and ask each. Okay. Brenda, do we got some paper and we'll have them all write on it? Perfect. Last year's winner was Central High School. They really brought their A game.
Thank you.
As you can see from way back there, that their name and class of 21 is engraved on the side of the trophy. So
I'd have to say that video does not do it justice because it was very loud.
right.
So. Can I also say that unfortunately we weren't all able to attend all 4 graduations, and so it does make it a little bit difficult. But I really love the idea of having clips of each graduation to kind of remind us of what it was like to be there, and if we weren't able to be there, to hear it a little bit. So thank you for bringing back the memories.
Director Potts, would you please text Brenda the school that you choose?
I'm doing that now.
Perfect. Okay. Your 2 choices are the top 2 finalists are West and Mid-City. Director Potts, if you could please send your vote to Brenda again.
I shall do that.
There you go. And the winner is West. 4-3. 4-3. So now whoever reads that motion, if you would include West in that part, please.
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that West High School be awarded the Spirit Award for the 2022 graduation ceremony.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing now, call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gordon.
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Congratulations to West. Sorry, John. Corey actually got up there and hyped the crowd up when they were going. She's really getting after it.
Very Corey things in that one. She did a great job.
Yes, she did. All right. May I have a motion on 11.08?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
the Policy Committee recommends the board approve policies 507.02, 701.01, 701.02, 701.03, 701.04, 702, 703.01, 703.02, 704.01, 704.02, 704.04, 704.05, 704.06, 705.02, 705.03, 705.04, 707.01, 707.02, 707.03, 707.04, 707.05, 708, 711.08, 712, and 904.02 as presented.
Go ahead and take a drink. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Kleindrome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 11.09?
Mr. President,
Director Poston?
move the board approve holding a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. on June 27th, 2022 for the flexibility account transfer.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Kleindrome? Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. That's what I was going to do. Thank you. Discussion items. We're going to go ahead with discussion 12.01, the SRO 28D agreement, because I didn't want you guys to hang out the whole time, and then we'll go into the data. Come on down. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you like to kick it off?
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Smith and Sarah Ott from the city. They are excellent partners. They are right there with us along the journey. One of the goals of this 2080 agreement is to ensure that we are transparent, that we are accountable, and I'm very proud of the work that has gone into this. I think back to, a year or 2 years ago, seems like forever, where we had both entities sitting in this room having great discussions. And so thank you for being here tonight. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you to kind of get our discussion going. Sorry, if you wouldn't mind also talking about the cadence. So it's presented here and then presented at the city and things.
Yep, absolutely. So good evening. My name is Sarah Ott. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the City of Davenport. We are here today to discuss the intergovernmental 28D agreement between the school district and the City of Davenport for the School Resource Officer Program. So this is a funding agreement and memorializes the 5 SRO positions that are part of the program for the next 2 school years coming up. So this is separate from the MOU that you guys approved last year in conjunction with the City Council. This is rather just a funding agreement. So the reason that this is coming before you tonight is because in the past there have been 2 separate funding agreements. We had one funding agreement that covered 2 positions. We had a separate funding agreement in conjunction with Bechtel Trust that covered 2 other positions. And then we had a 5th position that wasn't covered by any agreement. So we are now condensing all of those agreements down into one, which is before you tonight. So we are here if you guys have any questions regarding the agreement, or Lieutenant Smith is here if you have any questions regarding the program.
Director Beck.
Two questions. So nothing in terms of numbers is changing. It's just we're putting it all into one, essentially a contract or agreement, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess I'm wondering if, and this is a question for us as well, in the future, maybe we can sync these up with the MOU so that we can review data and make decisions about funding at the same time, if that makes sense, right? Because the MOU we have going right now is, we look at data and we can reevaluate really at any time, but I don't know if maybe in the future we can kind of put those two things together so that we can make a data-informed decision that's also linked to staffing.
Yep, we can certainly do that.
Since you brought up data, the data is listed on our website as well as the city's every month. It's there.
Yeah.
Well, so everyone knows that.
It was my understanding that we sort of also, as part of our side of things, we're going to review it at a certain point.
So we do have an annual meeting where myself and the mayor, Sarah, Lieutenant Smith, Dr. Klipsch was there because you weren't able to be there. And then we'll kind of go over that. I think one of the biggest things is the calls for service, and we kind of went over this, and a lot of the calls for service aren't even like students. It's like parents that shouldn't be there and stuff, so it makes the numbers look like that. So we had talked about ways of, if you want to add anything, but like ways to define that so when you look at it, that's what that is and stuff.
Yeah, so this question has come up with our elected body as well in terms of remembering what was part of the MOU and what was expected in terms of reporting back. So as President Goso was talking about, outlined in the MOU, every year annually, the mayor, the president of the school board, the superintendent, the city administrator, and then their staff delegates meet to review all of the data and make any program adjustments as necessary. We did that a few months ago, and there were no adjustments that came from that meeting. I'd say overall the data, and again, all the data is placed on the website for you guys and for the community to see. We want to be very transparent. That's something that came from the MOU. And so no recommendations were made to change the program in any way for the next year. I think that the conversation that we had was good around that. But in terms of one of the questions that we've received is, did the MOU outline a formal report back to any of the elected bodies? And it did not. There's no formal report that is going to come to our city council or to you guys. But if you do have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them.
One real quick, Dr. Klipsch, will you talk about as well? So during the meeting, he brings up about I'm drawing a blank. The surveys that go out to students and staff, and we also review all that as well.
Yeah, if you recall, part of the one of the pieces of data that we've been looking at that we wanted to make sure we understood is how do our students in our secondaries that have SROs or uniformed police officers feel about it, and the staff that are within those buildings. And again, these results, I have it pulled up, are directly on our website also that you can take a look at. But they continue to show between, some of the, how do I feel about my personal safety or how do I feel about the school safety? Those are continue to be in the 90-some% of positive, very positive, or neutral. And so we found those continue to be very positive. And what is better this second time that we've done the survey is we got almost double the responses from students and staff when we did it. That comes partly with the work of our principals, that we really said, hey, we need to know how all of our students feel about this, not just not just a small group of them. And so we worked hard to nearly double the number of students that took that. And again, we're seeing very, very positive results from the survey, which again, it's on the website too.
Director Kleindrom, you had a question.
Did you just settle a contract with the police union for salaries? I mean, so would these amounts have changed from last year? And are you in a multi-year agreement?
With our police union?
Right, for your wages?
I do not know. I believe we're actually entering negotiations with the union later this fall. Yes, but one of the things we've talked, like, these are known amounts. Like, we can forecast this out, and so one of the things that we talked about with Superintendent Schneckloth and with the finance director is that we'll be able to give the projections for these costs at the end or at the beginning of every fiscal year.
But since you're bargaining in the fall, you really don't know what this next year will be, correct?
Yes, I mean, in terms of wage increases.
And do you usually do a multi-year contract?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Director Potts.
have we analyzed our security needs in our buildings to the point that we are confident that 5 is a sufficient number of SROs?
So I can tell you, the mayor and I talked about this quite a bit. We could certainly use more, but there's not enough staff there to do it. That was a big conversation. Actually, I think that was the majority of our meeting talking about that, actually. But yeah, right now, the staff's just not, I don't want to speak for you, but.
Lieutenant Smith, feel free to jump in too, but you are correct. The staffing levels of the police department right now, there's no capacity to give more officers to this program. And so while there may be some discussion on, the desire to add more positions to this program, at this point, the city and the police department do not have the capacity to add any more officers to the program.
Maybe we could hire Paul when he retires.
He might love that.
Director Poston.
With the staffing not available, I guess just a follow up with Director Potts's question. Do we need more SROs?
Yeah, ideally, I think as a long-term goal, and I think the principals would probably agree that they'd like to have a school resource officer in all of the intermediate to junior high schools and all of the high schools as well. As far as data to back that up, whether we need it or not, I think this is going to help us, give us a foundation to make those decisions as we move forward. But yeah, ideally, I'd love to have an SRO in every single one of your schools.
Director Gordon.
I have a comment, I guess, and a question both. So the comment is, so I'm looking at the results of that survey, and it shows that for the students, 32.9% are neutral, 7% are unsafe, and 2.8% are very unsafe. And as far as staff, it's 17.3% are neutral, 2% unsafe, and 0.4% are very unsafe. So I understand that the safe and very safe data vastly outnumbers that of the neutral and unsafe. However, those are the people that I would like to hear more from. I would like to know what their reasons are for feeling unsafe despite the police presence in the schools. I have my suspicions what that might be and why that is, but I would like to hear from those people, because I think that if we are always catering to the bigger denominator, then we're missing an opportunity to learn and to do better with those who are not the majority. So that's my comment. And I don't know who would be responsible for taking care of that and getting that information, but I would like to hear it personally. And then my question comes from the agreement here. It says law enforcement training and activities. The parties agree that the resource officer should be allowed to attend mandatory training in order to retain his or her law enforcement officer certification or continuing education as required by state law and regulations and the Davenport Police Department. So that is something that would happen regardless of whether they were working in the buildings or not. So is that paid for via the city, or is that still on the school to, or the district to cover those expenses?
As it's currently outlined here, the district is responsible for all of the regular time salary costs of these officers, and the city will cover any overtime costs. I don't know if they do any of their training on overtime when they're in school, but
Yeah, I was just going to add, it's both and. So they get all of the in-service training required by the state for the Davenport Police Department to retain their certification as a law enforcement officer in the state of Iowa. And then they also receive additional training, partly that the district pays for as well. For instance, they're all NASRO certified as required by the MOU. All of our school resource officers are now certified through NASRO. And then we are also sending Sergeant Quick, our school liaison, to an active intruder school here at the end of this month, right, Andy? At the end of this month. So, and the school district is paying for that. So it's a partnership. It's both and. They're receiving training above and beyond what our officers are getting on the street.
Is that what you had? Any other questions? Director Paz, did you have anything else?
I'm good.
So as with our format, we'll discuss this at this meeting. At the next regular meeting this month, we'll be voting on this. Is there any information that you need to be able to vote on this? I want to make sure that Sarah and Lieutenant Smith and the superintendent and the staff have time to get that stuff together. All right.
sorry, one last thing I forgot to mention. So this agreement will be going before City Council at our Committee of the Whole meeting on Wednesday for discussion, and then for a vote the following Wednesday. So a week from Wednesday is when our City Council will be voting on it.
They get to vote on it like a week before us. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lieutenant Smith.
Appreciate it.
All right. Now, the one that a lot of you have been waiting for. We're going to skip. We're not going to skip. We're going to move up subject 12.07, the reading fast data. Superintendent Schneckloff, I'll turn it over to you.
We have members of our learning results team that are going to put together, or that are going to share our presentation with us. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Driscoll to get us started. We're going to need more microphones, Mr. Driscoll. Are we good?
That's okay. All right. As we're getting settled, thank you for having us. As Bonnie and Lee are handing out some material, want to point out on our presentation here that this presentation, not only the format of it, but also the topic, hopefully is becoming very familiar by now. We use that word cadence a lot, just the timing on how we're coming back to you. So this is our fourth presentation around early literacy specifically. We were sitting at these tables in August to kind of chart the course for this first year. And then we've come back twice since then after our fall benchmark testing to give you data, to share that with you and ask for feedback, reflection, and thoughts. Then we had our winter data, and so then that came back in March, and we did the same thing. And here we are for our end of the year benchmark data. And with that, we're gonna share not only the results of our benchmark data, but also kind of some of the big topics and things that we've accomplished through our early literacy priority initiative this year. In that second slide, if you don't mind scrolling for me, Lee, we just keep putting these in front of our board. These IASB questions that our school board has committed to. And so we're just going to give you a second to just scan those to kind of frame and orient your thinking and your questions. And I'm going to turn it over to our program director, Bonnie Acey, and she's got some friends to introduce as well.
Thanks, Mr. Driscoll. Yes, very excited to introduce some new friends to our team. I know you've been hearing about them as we've been going along the way. So in the middle, we have Jennifer Saxon. She will be our new early literacy specialist. Jen has been a vital member of our early literacy team this year through her current role with the AEA. So we're very excited to get Jen on board. Next to her is Kimberly Woods, and this is our new ESSER position. So we are super excited to have a specialist focused in the area of 512 literacy instruction. And so, and then our third, Lee, she's not new, she's been around, but she's new to this table. So we wanted to make sure we could bring her on board and have her help with the presentation tonight. Lee is our TLCS lead support teacher over our TLCS compensation program. And she has again been another vital member of our early literacy committee. And so she's gonna help with our presentation tonight. So very excited for all three of these ladies to be part of our team. So I'm just going to jump right in. Our two outcomes are the same that they've been the last times we've presented. We want to be able to examine our FAST data for this spring. That's step 5 of our continuous improvement process. And then we're going to spend some time again talking about what does that look like in our classrooms? How do we actualize that at the classroom level? So here you see our continuous improvement process, and we continue to implement the actions within our early literacy plan. We've met weekly throughout this spring to again support those implementation of our actions. The data and analysis serves as a progress measure along our way. How are we doing? Have we met our goals? It allows us an opportunity right now when we get data such as spring data to assess our impact. So that is step 5 currently. This allows us, again, that opportunity to assess our plan based on student achievement data and make any adjustments we need to. This allows us an opportunity to say, is our plan working? What adjustments need to be made? So here, when we think about our desired state, step 1, there are 6 Iowa Healthy Indicators that we monitor within our MTSS system. These healthy indicators are progress measures also within our early literacy implementation plan, and they help us monitor the health of our plan along the way. Indicator 1 goal is 95% of our students are screened. This continues to be a celebration for us. In the fall, winter, and spring, we have exceeded that goal with 97% of our students being screened each benchmark window. When we're looking at healthy indicator goal number 2, it states that 90% of our students below benchmark are progress monitored weekly. It is designed to help us monitor the percent of students who are not meeting benchmark and ensure that they are progress monitored weekly between each of those screening windows. From fall to winter, we ended with 43% of our students below benchmark being progress monitored weekly. As we monitored that goal first semester, if you remember, we talked about working with our building teams. We adjusted the requirements for our 4th through 6th grade students, all which helped us get closer to that goal. This spring, where 68% of those students were progress monitored. We have also, just want to celebrate that we've made growth from winter to spring towards meeting this goal. With that 68%, but we know we're not quite there yet. So we'll continue to monitor those grades closely to make sure that we will as we move forward. When we're looking at healthy indicator number 3, that is 80% of students screened are at or above benchmark. This goal is really looking at our universal instruction, our core instruction. As you know, for K-3, that's talking about our newly implemented 95% phonics core program. You can see that in the fall, we were at 52% proficient. We increased in the winter that 1% to 53%, and again this spring we increased to 55% proficient. We definitely want to celebrate that continued growth throughout the year, especially keeping in mind how far behind our students fell during COVID. Benchmarking targets are also moving targets. Remember, each benchmark period, they increase in rigor and expectation for each of those screening windows. I also want to note the data underneath the tables. That's last year's data, 2021. And you can see that we took a significant dip from fall to winter to spring, 53 to 49 to 50. We want to celebrate this year. It shows our continued growth after each benchmark period. And we really attribute that to that 95% phonics core program in being back to in-person learning as well. We did have some exceptional growth at some of our buildings we wanted to celebrate. Both Buchanan and Harrison made 6% gains from winter to spring, and Hayes made 7%. So some really great building celebrations. We also love to look at this data at the individual student level. Remember, we did that in the winter when we shared, and so you have student packets in front of you. I'm gonna take some time to celebrate those right now. So when looking at that student data at the building level, we really want to focus on individual growth and celebrate how they've closed the gaps where they're getting closer to meeting benchmark data. We have 7 students in your packet that we want to celebrate in our presentation tonight. We're bringing back our 3 Fillmore friends that we celebrated in the winter, and we also added a few new friends from Monroe and Jefferson, just to highlight this growth, and some of which who met benchmark. So, but due to privacy, we're not going to include them in our presentation, but you have them in your handout. So I'm going to talk to them now. So we had Fillmore student 1, and you can see that in the fall, she was in the red, so not proficient for accuracy or rate, but by spring, she grew to proficient in both accuracy and rate. I want to really capitalize on her growth. 74 words correct per minute. She exceeded that 1 year expected growth, which was only 38%, or 38 words correct per minute. So really awesome. Not only did she meet benchmark, but just that exceptional growth. And you'll notice she was one that we talked about in the winter. And so she went from winter to spring and met that benchmark, just like we knew she would. Student 2, again, both not proficient in accuracy and rate in the fall. Just significant growth for that year, 13% accuracy, 61 words correct per minute. Amazing little guy right there. He also exceeded the expected growth for the year. Fillmore student number 3, this one I really want to talk about. Again, in the fall she wasn't proficient for either accuracy or rate. You can see for accuracy, she grew tremendously, meeting that spring benchmark. For rate, I mean, look at her growth. 50, 77, 96. She grew 46 words correct per minute. So she grew more than what was expected, but she still fell just 5 words correct per minute short of that benchmark. So it's important to share this because I want you to know that she wouldn't be reflected in this data, but when we look at her individually, we're so proud of that growth and the curriculum she's able to receive to know we're on the right track. And we're gonna see her on the other end in the fall. So looking at indicator 4, this is 95% of students who scored at or above benchmark in the fall remain at or above benchmark in the spring. That's really important to know that when our kids are proficient, they're excelling and thriving and staying proficient, continuing to meet that rigorous goal as we go. So as a district for K-6, we celebrate being really close to this goal with 89% of our students remaining at or above benchmark from fall to spring. You'll note another celebration when we're comparing that 2021 data there at the bottom to our 21-22 data. You can see that from fall to spring, we increased this goal area from 81% in the spring of last year to 89% this year. That means 8% more of our students remained at or above benchmark from fall to spring. So really a great celebration in the right direction. When we jump to indicator 5, this is going into our intervention systems healthy indicator there. 95% of students who were below benchmark for 2 consecutive testing windows, so like fall and winter, that we want to make sure that they are scheduled in an intervention. So really important that they're getting that intervention that they need. So we are excited. If you remember, some board members were able to see this goal in action back in February when we visited buildings. That was those small group interventions that you saw. We call those the Tier 3 interventions. Those were with our PAR students persistently at risk. This is another area of celebration that we have 95% of our students scheduled in a small group intervention with a highly qualified teacher or interventionist with their reading endorsement. We want to celebrate the 95%, even though we did drop from 98 to 95 of those students scheduled in an intervention. Our goal is always 100%, right? Giving our kids the interventions and supports that they need. Something to keep in mind that affects this is our mobility. Anytime that a student moves in or out of the district, that can impact this goal, that we want to make sure those building teams are adjusting quickly to make sure that they're getting students scheduled in an intervention as soon as possible. We're continuing to address this barrier of that large number of students who are below benchmark, and excited to share that we have hired 12 of our 14 early literacy MTSS support teachers for next year. And we're definitely going to get those 2 more, I'm confident. This will help, to ensure that 100% of our students are receiving that intervention. And we will continue to clarify that importance of making sure it's documented in Panorama. That's how we monitor this goal. And that's important, again, just to make sure our data is accurately reflecting what our students are doing.
All right, and I'm going to talk about intervention systems indicator 6, which looks at the goal is to have at least 65% of students who scored below benchmark in the fall improve to at or above benchmark in the spring. So this indicator helps us monitor the growth of students below benchmark. So you can see we made progress with this goal as we increased from 14% in the fall to winter to 21% from fall to spring. For comparison from fall to spring, the AEA is at 24% and the state is at 25%. So many students have a large gap between where they are and where they need to be, and it takes time to close those gaps. One celebration, though, is to look at kindergarten. We want to point out that 37% of kindergarten students in the fall became proficient in the winter, and that grew even more from fall to spring, with 43% of kindergarten students who were below benchmark in the fall were able to become proficient by this spring. So this is a celebration indicating that where we're putting our early literacy resources, such as 95% core phonics program, and our human capital like our early literacy MTSS interventionists, are making positive impacts. We continue to have a lot of success stories at the individual student level, and Bonnie shared a few, and I'm going to share a few more. So if you want to take a look at student number 4 in your packet, this student is a second grade student at Monroe who received 90 minutes of that core instruction with the Phonics Core program daily, and then additionally Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction for 30 minutes 4 times a week, and added the Read Naturally program in the 4th quarter. So with this student, you can see it's an example of success in both areas of accuracy and rate. So the student moved from 81% accuracy to 97% accuracy in the spring, which is meeting that 95% accuracy for the year. And then also in the words correct per minute, the student moved from 34 below benchmark in the fall to 113 in the spring. So well above benchmark there, and really excited to see that 79 words per minute growth, which exceeded 45, which is the expected growth for that grade level. And then student number 5, you can see made 12 percentage points growth in accuracy. We have a second grader here from Jefferson, moving from 88% accurate in the fall to 100% accuracy in her words correct per minute in the spring, and additionally grew 21 words per minute to 109, exceeding the spring benchmark goal of 101 words, and making almost double the expected growth rate with 88 words correct per minute from fall to spring. And then, yeah, that's fine. I'm good, yeah. Student number 6 is a second grade student at Monroe. And student number 6 made excellent growth in the area of accuracy and just barely missed the goal of reading with 95% accuracy at that 94% mark, but do want to celebrate that 19% growth from fall to spring. So as students become more accurate in their reading, automaticity word rate follows. And so you can see the student grew 59 words from fall to winter, which is higher than the expected growth of 45 words. And then finally, student 7 is another second grader at Jefferson. And this student made extensive growth from fall to winter in both areas of accuracy and rate. This student met accuracy goals of 95% in both the winter and spring, and grew from 28 words per minute in the fall to 96 words per minute in the spring. And while she did not just barely make the proficiency in the spring with the rate, you can see that she was only 5 words away and grew well over the expected growth of 45 words per minute. So these are just a few examples that represent student growth this year. So then we'll go ahead and take a look. In the previous slides, we were looking at our data from this year and how it aligns to each of the healthy indicators. Here we want to celebrate our overall growth in reading data. As you can see, last spring, our proficiency in K6 was 50%. This year, we moved to an overall proficiency of 55% at the spring benchmark window. The second chart is showing 7th and 8th grade literacy screening results from spring of 2021 at 50% and spring of 2022 at 48%. And we recognize that while it is a moving target, we will continue to work on this rigorous core instruction and intervention at the junior high level to ensure that we can increase our proficiency and close the gap to reach our goals. On the next chart, this shows the percent of students who are proficient on the spring screening benchmark since the 2018 school year. So you can see that the grade level is along the horizontal axis and the percent proficient is along the vertical axis. The green line indicates the 80% proficiency goal, and you'll note that we are missing data from the spring 2020 due to school closures. But this data chart helps us to look at trends over the past several years when looking at overall student proficiency in literacy. For example, we can celebrate that the kindergarten data is climbing again after school closure, and we are getting closer to reaching our goal. It's also great to see that although the early literacy plan is focused on pre-K3, many of the actions such as teacher professional development, adjustments to progress monitoring, walk to intervention, and class-wide interventions are also having a positive impact on our 4th through 6th grade students. We see the drop in proficiency in 7th and 8th grade, and to get started with the work that needs to be done at the junior high, we have a couple of actions starting this summer, one of which is our new ESSER ELA 512 specialist, along with teacher professional development through the use of TQ at the Unbound Ed Institute, where some of our teachers are right now. So that's exciting. So there are many opportunities to pull out reflections from this data, but one final piece we want to celebrate is looking at the same group of students across multiple years, so looking at apples to apples. So if you want to take a look at the growth in the dark blue first grade 2020 to 2021 school year, so in the first grade column, that dark blue middle column, that represents 43% of our first graders were proficient during the 2021 school year. If you look at the second grade, then in the orange, which is the 2021-2022 school year, so this school year, you can see that they increased to 50% proficient. So that is a gain of 7% proficiency from spring of 2021 to spring of 2022. So those same students moving from first grade to second grade made 7% gains this year. So that's another celebration. And our final data slide, you'll see multi-year data in a table form. And this is the data that was passed out to you as well. It's also been broken down to view the data by subgroups. So we provided you with the printed data sheets showing the FastBridge data from spring as well as previous years. You may recall that this past fall, you were able to take an in-depth look at this data with the Notice and Wonders process. While we will not be doing that during this presentation, we recognize that the summer provides us with opportunities with time to follow a data analysis protocol with our early literacy team, DSAT, and building teams. And this analysis will help us to better understand the full picture of student proficiency and progress, which will help to inform our next steps in the early literacy implementation plan. This data analysis will also allow buildings to hit the ground running and begin all early literacy supports on day one this fall.
Just a few moments on the next outcome, you're good, was what does that mean for our classrooms and how to actualize that in the classroom. So we wanted to just, on the next slide, just share that within that continuous improvement process, we fall under two major actions. There you go. Universal instruction and intervention system guides. So we're excited that we're prioritizing that letters training for the next 2 years with all of our pre-K 6 classroom teachers, and also to continue to monitor that fidelity of implementation with our 95% phonics core program. We know that the learning that the teachers will be receiving during letters training will continue to support their instruction during that walk to intervention time. And we'll continue to monitor data regularly for student groupings to ensure that every student is getting what they need during walk to intervention, both for remediation and extension opportunities. Our early literacy team will also continue to collaborate with buildings to see what supports they need to make sure that we're meeting the variety of needs in our buildings. One example of that is our response with the early literacy MTSS support teachers. We definitely wanted to celebrate this. This past winter, if you remember, that a couple board members visited our Walk to Interventions in Action. At Monroe, I believe Mr. Paustian and Mr. Gosa were the two that observed our already proficient students during their walk to intervention with the teacher librarian. Here you can see their finished product that they created and submitted to the Davenport Public Library School digital storybook book contest. And these are our two winners. And so you can view their presentations, which they worked on during Walk to Intervention, and also on the Davenport Public Library website. So really exciting opportunity for our proficient students to get that extension above and beyond core instruction. Thank you for your time. And are we doing questions? Questions? Yes.
Director Hayes.
Thank you all for this presentation. I'm glad to see that the students are actually doing better. However, my concern is with the summer coming. What interventions do we have come fall to make sure they haven't lost anything? And question number 2, of these students that were in these intervention programs, do either of you have any idea how many may have signed up for summer school to continue, or what's the plan with that?
One of the things with your first question that I wanted to celebrate is that we have the opportunity for summer school in each of our elementary buildings this year, which is the first time in a really long time that we've been able to do that. So it's been awarded to more students as an opportunity, especially being in their home building. We know we're going to get better attendance. So our buildings have worked really hard at recruiting and sharing that information you're right, just to continue that growth with our curriculums during summer school as well. If you remember, that's where we started and we piloted the 95% phonics core program with our summer boost, which the teachers just raved about with the results and what they were seeing with their kids, which is why we ultimately went with that decision for the program. So excited to see that continue in summer for sure.
What was your second question?
Second part is of the students that were getting the extra tiers, do you have a percentage or know about how many of them are attending summer school?
Don't right now. I don't know if you, but we could get that for you and send it in a report.
Shaney walked by my office today and said 600 kids came to summer school because it started today, I believe, didn't it?
Yes. Awesome.
So 600 kids came. 600 came to summer school today.
That's good. That's an impressive number.
Thank you.
Director Klein Jerome.
I have several questions. On slide 8, it talks about 90% of the students below benchmark are progress monitored, and we only have 68%. Why would a student who is below benchmark not be progress monitored?
So one of those, when we were analyzing that, when we got that 43% after winter, was that our 4th through 6th grade were only progress monitoring every other week instead of weekly. Which in Panorama they require weekly. So getting that state clarification was a big adjustment to our teachers, especially with the large number of students who are below proficient. As you know, that's an individual assessment that they take weekly. And so finding that time, also absenteeism can create holes in our data where if a student isn't there, they can't be assessed. And so, again, it's something we're going to continue to monitor and improve, but that would explain a little bit of the data.
And one thing to keep in mind is if the number is 43, that doesn't mean that the other 57 weren't monitored at all. It was just saying that the teacher got to each one every single week to get that number. That's why the goal is 90%, is they recognize that it's not realistic to every week get all 100% of your non-proficient. And so because the guidance was just get it every other week, by the time we switched over second semester, that accounts for one, the big jump, the 25% increase, but also part of the reason why it is only 68%.
Mm-hmm. And I do look at apples to apples. So I look at kindergartners last year versus first graders this year. Mostly an increase, but between kindergarten and first grade was a 7.2% drop. And we have, gone to 95% and all these other things. What accounts for that big drop? Because I would think they would be very intense. And what's going on in junior high? Because 7th and 8th grade is alarming.
So I'd speak to the kindergarten to first grade and then open it up to anyone to add to that as well. If you think about last year, think about these kindergartners first access to school, and they were only able to come 2 out of every 5 days or 3 out of every 5 days. So their kindergarten year was a very atypical learning experience. And as you see here, that is a moving target. So it's not like it's once you hit whatever the mark is, you've made it. That's going to keep going up. And these kids that, these kindergarten students last year that are used to 185 days to learn a year's amount of work in a year's amount of time, had a abbreviated opportunity to get that. So even though we hit the goal, you can, when you're in there with a student every single day and you're drilling and you're drilling and you're drilling, and to some of you guys asking about summer, we might have just hit a goal with any one of these particular student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We might have just hit that target just in time for benchmark testing, but maybe not enough time to really get it to mastery. And so we come back after, a couple, 3 months off, and we come back, and then we're going to see a drop and have to keep working our way back. So, yeah, that idea of from kindergarten to first grade, it is, as you can see, even between in 18, 19, You know, there's a drop each year in that first grade year. There's a lot of skills to be acquiring. And now that we have that 95% group, and now that we are very intentional about it, we are cautiously optimistic that we won't see that drop. But you asked what could account for that? A lot of it is that abbreviated kindergarten year for some of those kids.
And junior high?
You know, I would say that in the last couple of years, we've got a new curriculum with Unbound Ed. It's a very rigorous curriculum at our junior high level that, you know, we're still working with our teachers at how to implement that. So we're excited to celebrate. They're down at the Unbound Ed Standards Institute to make sure that our students are all receiving that same level of rigor that they need to. That's not an easy thing to do. So that takes time and adjustment. Usually you do see some dip in the first couple years of implementation. And so we're excited again to move forward with Kim in this role and really being able to focus on that instruction. She was a model ELA teacher herself and has taught Unbound Ed at all levels from non-proficient to TAG. And so no pressure. But yes, we're very excited for that.
And finally, what were we doing in 1819 to have the scores high? And I get the COVID in there and all of that time, but have we taken parts of that successful area that got those high scores in 1819 away? Are we still doing them? Because obviously we were doing something right in 1819 to have those scores pretty consistently higher than these other 2 years.
So it's a great thing to point out that we want to keep coming back to. I will tell you, when as the early literacy team, when we met and did step one, we did look at that longitudinal data for multiple years to ask those types of questions. What were we doing? What was the difference? What curriculums were being used? How were we monitoring and implementing that data? And so a lot of those things came out with that difference with that structured literacy and how important that is to have that explicit foundational skill instruction. And so just continuing with that is our path forward.
Director Poston.
I don't know if there's an answer to this this question, but is there any way of finding the numbers as far as the ones that are below benchmark, you know, what their attendance is?
I know at many of our visits we chatted about that and definitely know that attendance has a great impact. And many of our buildings in June participated in that Growing Excellence Day with their building teams, and attendance was a big thing that we looked at as a priority initiative because we know if they're not there, they can't engage and we can't see the results that we want no matter how good the curriculum. And so I'm excited that the teams were able to have those good conversations to move forward, but we can certainly pull that data and look at that data if that's something you're interested in. I think it's going to tell you what you're already inferring and what you know.
Yeah. I think we all know it's definitely going to have an effect. I guess I would like to see, you know, the numbers, you know, how many students are actually, you know, where it's actually a problem for them. You know, I don't want you to have to spend a lot of time on it, but if it's possible, I would like to see that. And then on summer school, so I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but for last year's summer school, these kids were identified and invited to come to summer school. Is that the case this year too?
Yes, that's where we started with recruitment. Absolutely. Okay. It's just it wasn't offered at every site and it wasn't all extended day opportunities, so it made it really challenging for our families.
So what, well, if you want to call it incentives or whatever, are you trying to do or have done to get those kids to come to school?
Do you mean for summer school or just
for summer school?
Yeah, I think as Bonnie mentioned, having a site at every building has been a huge attractor, being able to go to their home building, and then having meals provided for those students as well has been a benefit to attracting students to receive those summer school opportunities.
What about, is there any help on transportation to get them to summer school?
Sure. just a budget piece we've always liked to do.
For the thought process. Go ahead. The thought process was that if we had it in every school, that's their walking attendance area, like in a normal school year. So that would cut down the need for busing.
Do we have a higher enrollment for summer this year than last year?
We can get that. I can put that in a Friday report
And when do they start?
today.
They started today.
Okay, so we will know if the attendance is, or the amount of kids who did sign up.
Director Beck.
I'm sorry. I have 2 or 3 questions. So my first one is, what exactly does it mean when a student is progress monitored? I'm not in a K-12 classroom, so I mean, I can watch a kid read, but that I don't think that's what you mean.
Do you want I can take that. Yeah. Okay. So it depends on the grade level. So at kindergarten, they might be progress monitored weekly. It's like a one-on-one test. They might be focusing on letter sounds, or it really depends on what their deficit skill would be. But we'll pretend it's letter sounds, right, for the beginning of the year. So I'll meet one-on-one with the teacher. We have a 1-minute assessment that mimics, if you will, the benchmark assessment that they're assessed in for the fall, winter, and spring. And so they would read the letter sounds at kindergarten, and then that's entered into FastBridge, and there's graphs that go along with that allow teachers to monitor progress along with their expected growth. So that's in kindergarten, for example. In first grade, they might do nonsense words, which are really just syllables, and it helps us learn whether or not students can apply those letter sounds in like make-believe words. And then second through, I believe it's 8th grade, would be those progress monitoring passages where it's a 1-minute timed reading. And so they're able to collect data on both their words correct per minute as well as their accuracy. And so again, closely mimicking the assessments that they're doing in the fall, winter, and spring. And so we can monitor their growth on a weekly basis. And just one other thing I want to touch on at I think it was 68%, if a student is absent more than 2 times out of the 8-week period, they cannot be considered progress monitored on that data graph. So if they were absent 3 times throughout that period, then they wouldn't show up as being progress monitored at all, just because of the way that Panorama collects the data. So just a point of information on that as well.
Okay. So basically, progress monitoring is just record it. Like if I were to teach a class, I might start the next class with sort of asking the students to do what we talked about the first time. You're asking them to do what you've already talked about, but it's 1 minute. It's very short, and it's recording officially how well they can do on something. Is that basically the idea?
But it's very specifically around their
one skill or
exactly.
Okay.
And that is just always going with our foundational instruction, even if we're working during our whole group around author's purpose or some comprehension standards. That piece is in the background.
Okay, but it's like super short, 1 minute per. Okay.
Timed reading. But in a classroom full of 24 kids, if half of them aren't proficient, you can see where that adds up for a classroom teacher, right, and where that data goal that you referenced can be challenging. We've given lots of feedback and suggestions of doing 1 student or 2 students every day after a small group. And so that's been helpful as part of the work that we've done this year of how to fit that in. That data, it's also just not just a check and balance, but it really does inform the instruction, especially for our interventionists to know, are they meeting those goals? What progress are they making? And if they're not, how do we adjust it? So that data is used by classroom teachers and our interventionists.
I also don't want to overemphasize minute, get out of next, because our teachers really spend time providing feedback to the kid, using it as an instructional opportunity. And so they really value that time with their students for an opportunity for feedback on their fluency or accuracy or whatever it may be.
Oh yeah, I just kind of was trying to wrap my head around like what exactly does it mean, because I want to make sure I was trying to wrap my head around how onerous it could potentially be if it's required every week, but that makes more sense. So my other question, you mentioned 3 schools that made really big gains. It was Buchanan, Harrison, and I missed the third one. I apologize. Hayes. Okay.
Yeah, it's 7%.
So I'm sure you've asked this question, but what are they doing different than Monroe and Madison and McKinley and Garfield and all of our other schools?
I think we'll be excited to see what they shared through that Growing Excellence Plan, because that was part of that process where they wanted to talk about successes and barriers and what was working. And being able to review those plans as an early literacy team, we can pick up on some of those things that we're finding in those buildings, which will be really impactful to replicate. So we're excited to see their analysis from their data.
Okay. And then my last question. So you mentioned 7th and 8th grade. I guess I know every student takes an ELA course, but once we get to 7th and 8th grade, we have all these electives and we have an emphasis on CTE. So I guess my question is, just as a whole, how much reading are students actually doing in 7th and 8th grade? I know occasionally there's a book, maybe the class is reading in your ELA class, but that's one book over a period of time. Just trying to think from my son's experience in 7th grade, and he's in tag, but I don't think he reads that many books on the whole.
To talk to one of the barriers, you make that shift from 2nd to 3rd grade where you're learning to read, to reading to learn. And unfortunately, because of our data and where we are with our students still not being proficient at those grades, we're sending kiddos at that junior high level that need more of that intervention and instruction. We've made good gains this year with the junior high scheduling and really trying to be intentional. There's still work to do. We know that we need to give more attention to an MTSS system at the junior high level, and what that looks like is important work that needs to be done.
I guess I would think that would sort of start to phase out if we've got things in place early on, but
yeah, that's the goal.
I know it feeds into discipline issues, it feeds into, dropout prevention, it feeds into basically all of the things that we talk about. And so, yeah.
We start there and it's going to eventually, right?
Yeah.
Replicate and take hold, but we still have work to do there in the meantime to help continue to balance that and give students what they need at those levels too.
Director Gordon.
I just really wanted to celebrate especially the 3rd to 6th grade group. They made some really big jumps from like the apples to apples one year to the next for the IEP kids, the ELL, and the low SES students. Those are some major gains, and that's really something to be proud of, and that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you for pointing that out. That was in your data table.
Director Hayes.
Just a follow-up, Bonnie, you had mentioned if the students weren't there, they can't be assessed. Is there like makeup sessions for them, or do they just miss out, or what do we do about that?
We wish, right? At Panorama in this system, they only allow it to happen within that week. Even on weeks that there's only 2 days of school, still a week within Panorama to get those assessments done. So it's being very mindful of what that looks like within that state reporting system.
Hey, and you had mentioned there was conversation about busing and transportation. If the student does not live in their assigned district, are they able to go to another school close to walking distance for summer school? Or do they have to go to their home school?
They go to the school that they are enrolled in. That's where they're eligible for. Yeah. I couldn't say if I am open enrolled, if I'm a family and my student is open enrolled to another building, for whatever reason, could I go to the one that's closer to me for the summertime? They could inquire, and I don't know if we've had an opportunity for that, but it's just where you enrolled, you can come to summer school here.
Okay.
And I suppose that's with an assumption that that is more convenient to them. So
Yeah, because with transportation, with open enrollment, many of them do catch buses, but if they could go somewhere walking distance, that may help them.
Director Potts, did you have any questions?
I have no questions. I just want to congratulate Kim.
Right, Bruce?
Bet,
It's a good
kiddo, you
catch,
bet.
right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Director Potts. Director Kleindrome?
This is a question for TJ. A long time ago in a land far, far away, we used to hire somebody to come in and they did the testing because this was before we did it on computers and they, checked your accuracy and your fluency and all of that. The classroom teacher did not have to do that. Progress monitoring is one giant pain if you have, like you said, 10, 12 kids. And it's not 10, 12 minutes. I'm going to tell you that right now. Have we thought about using some ESSER money to hire people who all they did is, like, I'm assigned to this building and I go progress monitor? Because you are taking away from the rest of the class when you've got to sit down one-on-one and do that. I mean, if you only have 2 or 3, that would be great, but that's not the case usually.
We have not talked about that, and I remember I can't remember the title of them. They came and they went. The assessment team, I can't remember the name of them. But right now the employee shortage that we are facing, it would be almost impossible to find another layer of people. Right now, you heard how we're trying to get our interventionists filled, classroom positions filled. And so really we're trying our best to prioritize those things, but that has not been a conversation point. From what I remember of that is and there's pros and cons to it, right? It saves time. It gives the progress monitoring piece, as I've watched people progress monitor, it also gives you a tell of what the student's next steps are. So as I'm sitting with you, if it's onset, if it's RIME, if it's CVC, I'm also listening. It's also another opportunity for me to sit one-on-one with you and hear exactly what your issues are. And so from there, ultimately, it's something, and this is tough to say because we're always looking for ways to give back the gift of time, and that's why we did that. But ultimately, that's an important component of what does this student need. So I remember that too. I think it was about 5 years ago when we tried that and then stopped. And so I would say that those are the two barriers to it right now.
Director Poston?
We talked about earlier the interventionists that we've hired. We've hired 12. You're trying to hire 14. So are the 12 that are hired, are they all involved in the summer school program?
No, not that they couldn't be. They don't start until their contract. So it's for the contracted year. Summer school is all hired separately, so they could apply for those. Students in summer school do receive intervention from their teacher as well. So is that what you're asking?
Any other questions?
President Gosa, can I just a point of clarity, and I apologize that we didn't put it in there. You saw on each slide, healthy indicator 1 and 2 and 3. Just so you know, our Iowa school performance profiles, the scores that each building gets, they're based off of those healthy indicators. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. So when we hit a 95% mark as a building, so we showed you district averages. So if a building hits their 95% mark, then they get one score. If they don't, they get a different score. And all those numbers factor together to be your Iowa school performance profile score. So that's what the healthy indicators are. I just want to make sure that you guys were aware of that.
Perfect. I just have a clarifying question. I know, like, when we did our visits, we asked, obviously attendance is a huge thing because that directly affects a lot of stuff. And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. when you go through and see the students that are struggling, and if it's an attendance issue, obviously that's addressed. And then each building works with the family to figure out what the barriers are, correct? I mean, whether it's buying them a bus pass or whatever, but I just want to put that out there that we are trying to do those things to meet the students and families where they are, to make sure they're getting to do. Technically, if you ever talk to our attorney, we're only supposed to educate kids, and we do so much more that I think people don't even realize that we do. So I just wanted to, express that is acknowledged, and the buildings do work on that. So what I would be looking for is kind of along the line what Director Poshman was asking about earlier, like the number on the absences, but also the number of, how many families were offered that support and turned it down and things like that. Or you give the support, but they still don't show up and things like that. Because I think that factors into a lot of things as well.
So I think what you're talking about, I would refer to like our SIT teams. So at the building level, we have those student intervention teams, and we address all child need. So you're talking about academics, behavior, attendance, all of those pieces go into a puzzle when, Dan comes to the table and we're discussing your concerns. What do? We also talk a lot about that influence of control, what's within our control with those interventions that we can do. I can give them a tier 3 intervention. I can make sure that they're on our attendance monitoring sheet. I can add some celebrations and a behavior card when they meet their goals. Those are really things that intervention team focuses on, which gets at, we can offer all these things and we can't guarantee that parents might take us up on it, but that doesn't mean we're not giving them those supports that they need, because a lot of those things can be within our control. But those SIT teams are exactly what you're talking about, which have been such an awesome part in the last 5 to 6 years with the PLC process that we have in our buildings.
I think that would be an awesome presentation to the board. All right, thank you very, very much. Did anyone have any other questions? And to be clear, there are the interventionists from, what was it, K to, they're split up now, right? So they're not doing K through 12, so that would be a little more focused, right?
Yes, so we have regular district interventionists that can support K-6 that are elementary. And then we have our new ESSER-funded early literacy MTSS teachers who are focusing on K-3.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the team. You want to keep rolling? You want to? Need a break? All right, we're gonna pause. Wait, I should probably get these gals through so they can get out of here, right? Which
JCL.
one? Can I bump that up?
I believe we could.
Okay, we're gonna move up item 12.06. We're gonna go ahead and discuss that now, and then we'll take a break after that.
So this is our annual renewal. Willie, do you have your microphone with you? So we are putting this contract before the board. It's a service that's inside of our district. It provides lots of resources to our students and family. Willie, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything to add. We also have some JCLs with us here tonight if you have any questions before we vote on this at the next meeting.
Yeah, the JCLs also support the mediation program that we've had a presentation on, that Dr. Clips led earlier in the year with Scott. Some of the examples of the work is they assist with some truancy pieces. They also support some of the probation services that are out there. They do a number of prevention activities to support kind of a reduction of delinquency. We each year kind of have maintained this contract, so this is a running piece, just renewal of that contract.
Director Beck.
So this is Juvenile Court Liaison, right? That's the correct title. Are you all housed in our, I don't know if I should ask you or or Dr. Barney.
They just out of the goodness of their hearts showed up to hang out with us tonight.
Awesome.
So
Well,
first of
thank
all, I
you
want to
for
give them
coming.
a hand for staying around as long as they have.
So are these people who are in our buildings and then sort of act to divert students, prevent them from entering that juvenile court system, or when they get involved with the juvenile court system, then these people step in?
So it'd be a yes to all the above. Do you ladies would you like to speak? That'd be awesome. Come on up. But the answer is yes to both of those pieces. They are housed in our buildings. They do assist with prevention as well as responsive services for kids that are in the system as well.
He pretty much said it. Yeah, we work with at-risk students that the school or ourselves consider to be at risk. Maybe they don't attend a lot. They have a lot of behaviors. They get in trouble, a lot of referrals at school. We work with those kids that are considered at risk. Then we also work with kids that are already on probation, try to keep them attending school, get better grades. We work with them on their behaviors. Usually I feel like we just put out fires like every day with these students.
Hey, to honor the amount of time that you guys have hung out with us tonight, can you introduce yourselves and let us know what buildings you're at?
Yeah, so I'm at Smart Junior High. My name's Courtney Arndt. I'm the JCL there. This has been my 3rd year.
So, I'm Alyssa Hurley. I'm at Sublo and Mid City. This will be my 2nd year in the district.
Well, I was just going to say, since you're here, thank you so much for what you do. I know takes a lot of dedication, so I appreciate that. I didn't realize that you guys were working with kids both in and hopefully never in the juvenile court system. So thank you.
Director Kleindrum.
I don't see Wood on the list. Do we not have anybody that goes to Wood, or do they travel between 2 buildings to include Wood? They seem to be the one left out.
They just hired their replacement, so it probably hasn't made it to the list yet.
Oh, but they do have some.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing I noticed, I don't know if you can scroll down, but I don't know if I'm like not going to be at Mid City anymore or what they're going to do with that. But I was at Mid City all last year, so I don't know if that's a mistake or gotta keep going all the way down, I think.
They are still continuing to identify the placements to make sure we're getting the best coverage and service. So you're still there.
Yeah.
You're still in with us.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or any other information any board member needs to vote on this at the next regular meeting? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for enduring.
And now we're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, good. We're back live. Just wanted to make sure. So the next 2 subjects, we'll just talk about them both. Is that what you want to do? Okay. So we're going to talk about bread and meal pricing. I'll turn it over. The floor is yours.
All right. Last year we had gone out for a formal RFP. That bread company is no longer going to be available to provide us bread throughout the school year, so we did another formal RFP this year, and we are recommending to go with Pan of Gold. We have had them previously. Their bid came in at $101,000 versus the other company, which was Bimbo Bakeries. They were not able to provide us preschool-sized bread buns, and their proposal was about $40,000 more.
Director Beck.
I didn't realize they had to make special preschool sized bread. They can't just cut it in half.
So the preschool size bread is like a 3-ounce, and our high school one or the elementary is a 4-ounce.
Oh, okay. So you said that the one we got last year, because I remember going through this, they're not doing bread.
They chose to not continue our contract.
Okay. So do you think we'll have to go through this whole RFP process every year?
I hope not.
Okay.
The current RFP is written in such a way that we will be able to continue with a 1-year term to renew it for additional 2 years.
Okay. And then have you tasted all the breads?
We actually had Panna Gold prior, or when I first started with the school district. That was our bread vendor for multiple years.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Is there any other information the board needs about bread to vote on bread? It is a lot of bread to buy bread. All right. All right. Meal pricing.
All right. We would like to recommend that we have a 10-cent increase for all meals at all levels for next school year. And I want everyone to remember that we have not had a price increase for the past 2 years. I know several school districts went ahead and made price increases, but we chose not to because the meals were free to all students. At this time, I feel like we are now a little bit behind the game because we did not choose to increase our prices. So that's why we're recommending 10 cents across all levels. We are projecting between a 10 and 15% increase in our food costs. You'll see it in the grocery store already. However, we don't want to increase our meals in such a way that it's not going to be affordable for our families in the district.
Director Kleindrum.
I thought it was great that it was only 10 cents because I go to the grocery store and trust me, our prices are much higher. So the fact that you believe we can get by with just 10 cents?
I don't believe we can get by with 10 cents, but I thought that it was
out of respect to the families in paying. Yep, I appreciate that.
Director Beck.
So the meals, I think, aren't all meals free at some schools right now?
All meals are free at all
schools
right now. But this fall, they have removed all the waivers, so we will go back to our normal school year.
Okay, and that was all part of COVID relief and everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. And 10 cents, yeah, like Director Kleindrum said. Thank you.
Director Poston.
So is the USDA still going to continue to do subsidizing, or is that gone away?
That has been discontinued as well.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Director Potts.
If the 10 cents is insufficient to cover costs, how do we make up that difference?
Depending on the deficit, we would request money to come from general funds or the flexibility accounts. There's a couple different accounts that the state recommends us asking the school board for to make up the difference.
Did you have anything else, Director Potts?
No, it just means that there could be a potential shot on the general fund then, right?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to let everyone know that we did submit to state a request for 17 of our schools to be considered CEP, which is our community eligibility provision, which that enables those 17 schools to allow for students to eat for free. That has not been approved, so that's why I have not, I guess, made that public information yet. That hopefully will happen in the month of July.
Director Gordon. So you said that 10 cents wasn't adequate. I'm just curious. I'm sure you ran the numbers. What would it actually be?
Well, I guess it depends on what you want to cover for costs. If you're just talking about the food itself, it comes to $2.40. and that's just for the food. That doesn't include labor.
So what would it be for the whole?
I can get back to you with an actual number.
Okay. I'm not advocating either way because I actually have kids in school and I do pay for this, but I'm not advocating for no increase or none. So there is no gain here, for the record. Is there any other questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, Director Potts.
if the grant or something for the 17 schools that have free meals, who reimburses us? Who pays for the free meals?
Those meals get reimbursed by the state and the federal government. So there's two different funding sources for that.
Is it reimbursed at cost, or is it reimbursed at a figure that they have set?
It's reimbursed at a figure they had set, which is around $4.50 per meal. However, any additional income that we receive from those meals cannot be used to pay for students that are paying.
We need to sell more chips and junk food.
That's actually how we fund a lot of our department, our revenues
Yeah.
off of a la carte.
Okay. I know. I spent 42 years in a lunchroom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
I never even realized that. So my kid is really
Yes.
pumping that fund. $50 a week. It doesn't look like there's any other question. I would be curious to know the numbers of what it actually should be versus the 10 cents.
So that reimbursement that I was talking about for $4.50, that comes into play with that federal regulation for the price lunch equity tool. So the expectation for us is to make sure that our costs are very similar to what we're actually getting reimbursed. So that's why there's a whole another layer of what we are asked to do from a state level for charging. The paid lunch equity tool is not out yet. If you were a positive positive financial standing as of December, then you're not required to do a state increase. So because we were positive, and that was related to some ESSER funding that we got, so we don't have to follow that state recommendation for an increase.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to subject 12.04.
We're asking the board to approve our, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. We're looking for to notifying the board that we're interested in pursuing a Fortinet firewall upgrade and licensing to the cost of $180,000. This is a really good deal in the terms of we've got to do this. This is important software to making our firewall work the way it needs to keep our kids safe on the internet and that sort of thing. And it's an annual fee of $128,000 that we're doing with this. The company has provided us 3 options, 1-year option and a 3-year option, or just renewing it for the single year. And while it makes sense to get the greatest discount at the 3-year mark, I think it's strategically more appropriate for us to seek out the single year that comes with the hardware purchase. And that single year will give us an additional time while we're waiting for the hardware to come in to replace the hardware that we've currently got. I'm expecting prices to go up across the board as we're all experiencing the supply chain issue problems and inflation as well. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to make a good move towards securing this product for the next 3 years at a discounted price. Hardware-wise, that is 3 years. We're asking for a single year that comes with it, and then the additional time that is provided during the time period between purchasing the product and actually getting it. We're expecting about a 25% discount in our costs doing that. It looks like optimistically 4 months it might be a little light too, because we're hearing the companies kind of going, maybe we give too good an offer here, because it may be 6 to 8 months before we actually get the hardware, and that'll be all gratis time on the software. So I think it's a really good move for us at this time.
Director Beck.
So basically, it'll take 6 to 8 months potentially to get the hardware, and then we have essentially 4 months of getting it installed. Is that?
So our current hardware isn't actually out of function at this point. We've got about another year's life on it, but they're offering to upgrade us at this point in time for whatever sales reasons or whatever. And it's a good opportunity for us, because we're not at a pressure point where we have to buy that software at this point in time. The hardware would be much more expensive if we did have to do that. So buying it as a bundled hardware package from them, and getting the expansion of when we actually get the hardware is when our contract starts. That gives us free software over that time period. So it's a win-win opportunity for us, I think.
Director Klein-Jerome.
You say the greatest discount comes at 3 years, but we're only looking at 1. Explain to me why we're not going 3.
Well, it's an additional $100,000. And if you look at it, if we had all 3 years that we had to pay for, that would still cost us that extra $100,000. We're getting the hardware and an additional amount of software for $52,000. So we're making it's a better deal for us at this point in time to do the shorter duration on the contract, because we'll be getting 3 months while we wait for the hardware to come in. So it's a little bit convoluted, but I've done the math on this, and I know we can save some money this way. Well, we'll get the hardware, which is where the price is going to go up. We'll be locked in for the software purchase over those time period anyway. So.
Any other questions? I think it's good that you're doing this, because 6 months is generous, because a lot of companies are out 8 months to a year. So
right. Especially
if we have a year left, I think it's good to.
I always hate to overstate it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Subject 12.05. Huddle request for West High School.
The huddle request that you're looking at is going to seem a little bit different. Normally, these huddle requests for purchase or services don't come before the board, because they're usually broken down to in each individual sport at about $1,000 a pop. And so you normally don't see them. West High was intentional this year, in which they bulked all of their athletics underneath one purchase and did a 3-year service agreement with it. And so you're seeing it now because it's every sport all together for a multi-year, and that's why you're seeing it. So the other buildings in the past have been doing individual sport by sport agreements. So that's why this is a little bit different, and that's why it's coming before you. This huddle agreement is how they share all of their game tapes. It is how they share and input potential stats come from them. There's multiple services utilized by Brenda. Can you please open that up for me? It is utilized, that there's your list of the different activities that are using this. Performance art group is using it, basketball on both sides, football, soccer, volleyball. Just a wide range of activities utilize the program and the service agreement.
I'm probably the only one sitting here that's actually ever used it and knows exactly what you're talking about. I'm assuming it would be cheaper for them to bundle it with all, so I don't know why the other schools wouldn't do that.
So Kevin said thank you when he first saw this. He was happy to see that the group had done it. So it depends where the other entities are within their agreements to whether or not they're able to pull this off and put this together. So this would be the recommended route.
Director Poston?
So this isn't equipment, right? It's just to, like you said, the game tapes,
Yeah,
stats.
it's their subscriptions. Yep.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with equipment.
Yeah, the breakdown is there, and it actually even gives for the windows of time that each agreement is in place. And so this is not to install any equipment anywhere to do anything along those lines.
What's huddle stand for?
I've been around coaching for many, many years, and we've just called it huddle. So give me 1 second.
That's all right.
I think I mean my natural inclination is to say sports huddles, and they just went with that, and that's how they do it.
Does anyone have any other questions or require any other information to feel comfortable doing this? I would love to see the other schools do the bundle too, because it's probably way more bang for your buck. All right. Now we will move on to subject 12.08, plasma table purchase.
The next two, actually, I believe, right, Allie, fall under Allie's, if you don't mind bundling those together, President Goza. Since we're in the mode of bundling.
I'm in the bundle. Let's bundle them.
They are very different, but sure.
They are. But for those of you who are not familiar, this is Allie Vandermine. She's our CTE specialist, along with other duties assigned to Allie. Absolutely.
We
for those
did.
of you not familiar, and also, excellent job on the grant that we just received. I know your work was in that, and thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Allie.
Okay, so the memo you have in front of you is for the purchase of a plasma table at Central. This equipment is in place at both West and North, so this is just a replacement of a broken table at Central. The table that we had selected is going to be big enough for a full sheet of sheet metal, which we wanted to make sure was true. If we had to cut down full sheets, it starts to get more expensive in consumables. So we wanted to ensure that the plasma table selected is big enough.
I'm not seeing any questions on that, so I think you can move right on to the esports contract.
Perfect. So this is a request for quotes to go out for the Central High School esports program, which is currently housed in the Central High School library. This would be funded by ESSER. There is plans in place as well, and ESSER requests in front of that committee to fund both North and West as well, but we're just kind of starting with Central because they already have a program.
I think you're going to get a lot of questions.
That's okay.
Director Beck.
Why are esports funded by ESSER money?
Yeah, it's a great question. So esports are specifically in this case, especially, it's really a connection with the students as and the staff, bringing them together to ensure that kids are engaging in school. It's also a place for that social emotional learning that happens during that engagement. And there's a lot of nutritional learning that happens as well. The esports program has worked with a nutritionist out of Grandview University about fit gaming and ensuring that students are really a part of a whole health program with this program. And so we put it under ESSER just because it is a way for students to engage both online and within the building and bringing them back to the building.
Throughout the pandemic, engagement and activities, students being engaged. This is an excellent opportunity to provide those opportunities to our students. Also, this did go through our ESSER committee. So Kevin, if you would like to add on to that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that caught our attention is there's an underserved part of the population, and part of ESSER is to provide services to underserved populations, and this smacks right in the middle of that. So that's what caught the ESSER committee's attention as part of why it could be ESSER funded.
To add to that, talk about how many students are receiving scholarships coming out of this program this year.
Sure. So for a little bit of background information, I was the one who started this program at Central. I started it back in 2018, in the spring of 2018, and it's kind of built along as we've gone. Of the seniors who have graduated out of my program, 100% of them have received college scholarships. Many of them have taken up those college scholarships. As of this year, we surpassed $1.2 million in college scholarships offered to our students. I kind of stopped keeping track after that, to be really honest with you, because there was a couple more that rolled in after that.
Well, thank you very much for making sure that there's a whole health thing to it, because I do appreciate that.
Yeah, there's an app for that.
Oh, there's an app for that. Yeah. But thank you. And that makes total sense now that you guys kind of explain the engagement point of it. So appreciate it.
Director Potts.
Mr. President?
Oh, hey. Actually, go ahead, Director Potts.
What are they getting scholarships for?
To go play esports at college, and 2 of them are actually streaming. So they are like the commentators that go along with the esports experience. So broadcasting is what they're majoring in.
Okay, it seems to me kids spend too much time looking at computers and playing games.
It is a really great experience for those students to feel like they're positively engaging with their school, as well as we do a lot of learning around sometimes you need to shut off the machine and recharge your brain.
Yeah, well, I got to process this, okay? I got to process this. Sports were like you did that stuff outside. I realize this is new stuff, but it's just, I don't know. Not a lot of physical activity.
I mean, I will state that my state championship Smash team was all in strength and conditioning 1 and 2 together. So that was their team bonding.
All right, that's all I have.
Director Poston.
So is this considered an extracurricular activity? Or the kids are not getting credits for this? No. Okay. So how are they making use of their time, or how do they get to the central library to do this while they're trying to, go to all their other classes? What are they doing? What's the process?
So this is an after school activity, just like basketball or football is.
Okay. So you would consider it an extracurricular activity?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Flynn, what do you think about the esports at Central?
I think it's engaged a lot of students that otherwise would have been completely unengaged in their school experience.
So it's just like getting involved in a regular school sport.
It is. Tapping into the students' interests where they are instead of where we maybe have always thought they should be.
Does it become a distraction from the...
It has not, and I think that's been due in large part to the people who are overseeing the program. And quite frankly, Allie has done a great job of holding those students to a very high standard academically, attendance-wise, all those things.
So it's just like any other sport. I mean, you look at the academics and, hey,
Yes.
if you're not
Every
keeping
week.
your academics up, you're not going to participate.
Correct.
Is that true?
Yeah, we check their grades every week. We also talk to their teachers about behaviors as well. So if they're misbehaving in class, they don't play that week.
And as someone whose office is right next to the lab, the only person that it distracts is me, but I'm okay with that because they are out there having so engaged, having so much fun. When I walk out and see them, they are fully in it. And I'm probably speaking in a generality, but they're kids that typically might not have had that social connection. So I see a real positive in that too, of kids interacting with one another that may not have had opportunities or felt comfortable doing that in another setting.
Director Kleindrum.
How many students are involved?
150 were this year.
What?
I had on my unique students on my roster.
Director Gordon.
Okay, forgive my ignorance because when I hear the word sports, my brain just like fizzles. I don't know what happens. But is this like, are they playing sports in the games? And then also, is robotics something different? And is that a thing at Central too?
Robotics is something different. They do have a robotics team at Central as well as West. Esports is competitive video games. We play as a member of the Iowa High School Esports Association against other Iowa high schools.
Thank you. That helps. My brain just was like, did you guys have a booth at the freshman orientation?
Yep.
Okay.
We
What
did
you
share
have there?
we did share a table with robotics because I was responsible for both of those groups, and so I kind of had to stand behind both teams.
I think that's what my brain, that's what I'm remembering is being like, wow, that's really cool, which is not usually what I go to when I think video games, but like both things my son was drawn to. So
perfect.
Yeah, neat.
It is a huge thing. I mean, they even have it on ESPN in the morning sometimes and go over it a lot. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you even get some of the big time stars that are sitting there talking about it and stuff. It's the new thing. Director Beck.
I was just going to say for Director Gordon, they can play sports if they play certain sports games, but it doesn't have to be.
Like Rocket League, it's soccer with cars.
Can I also just say, I looked on both the district page and Central's page, and I tried searching esports with and without a dash, and there's no results. So we should fix that. Mike.
Especially since we've won 2 state championships.
What
Mr. President?
Oh, yep, Director Potts.
Okay, I'm really out of touch with this stuff.
You want us to schedule you a visit to check it out, Mr. Potts?
I would appreciate getting some more info on this because as soon as there are 100 and some kids, good Lord, we can't get that many kids to show up on a football team, all 3 high schools combined.
Superintendent Schneckler.
So there was a special that aired on, I think it was it CBS about a month ago that directly went into this. And there are some facts that stick out about esports. The revenue that's generated by esports is greater than the revenue generated by the NFL right now. So this is the world that our students live in. And I will tell you, my own kids right now, we will go to social events and they'll know other kids from other high schools because they play sports online right now with one another. And so anywhere we can get students engaged, I will tell you, one of our directors had a mentor at the elementary school, and when this kid found out that the track that this student is on has an esports team, immediately re-engaged, and all of a sudden the outcomes for that student began to immediately improve. And so these are real motivators for our students. And so we all have, Director Potts, we all have a lot of learning to do in this arena because I'm right there with you. I don't quite understand it, but fortunately we have the national president of esports.
Yeah, I'm the president of the National Scholastic Esports Association. I also founded the Iowa High School Esports Association.
So we are in good hands with heading in the right direction with esports. And this is something that is going to re-engage students. I hear the board say all the time, how can we engage our students? How can we get them to come to school? And it's by thinking outside the box programs like this. And it is serving, like Kevin said, a population that that can benefit from engagement. We all can benefit from engagement. And so,
so they're not doing Pong, huh?
Pong. Yeah, I bet there is a
Okay. I appreciate gaining this information.
Director Hayes.
Director Potts, I understand your frustration. I think what Superintendent Sneckloff was referring to was about a month ago on NBC. Willie Geist did a segment on it. And he talked about all the positive results. And I was just flabbergasted by all the kids, what they had to say and what he had to say about it. And especially just floored when he talked about the money and scholarships that was given away for these esports champions. So I think it's an awesome deal, especially for the shy, sheltered children that wouldn't necessarily interact with other students. This is something where you're on your own, but you're with the team, so you're still a part of something. So I think it's a great idea.
Director Beck.
I'm wondering if maybe, I know I saw you write something down in your book about the website. Can we get a presentation on esports or something like that so that, come fall, like get people excited, get it in the paper? I don't know. I mean, it's a big deal. The fact that you are president of the National, what is it, High School Esports Association?
Scholastic Esports.
Scholastic Esports Association. That's fantastic. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for finding creative ways to engage our students to keep them academically sound and attendance-wise. That's awesome. All right, we are on to subject 12.10, challenge to change.
I'll turn it over to Dr. Klipsch.
Yeah, so you may recall, I don't remember exactly when, but we actually presented on this, I think last year about the same time when we were looking to present on this program. We had some students come in and talk about how this, how Challenge to Change, this mindfulness, social emotional program has supported them in their school. I think they even did some poses for you, if I might recall correctly. This is a continuation and actually an expansion of the program. It is still one of our most highly regarded programs in our buildings with teachers, with administrators. And so this, now that we are back into more of a routine of in-person learning, this allows for more of the live sessions where they come in, the Challenge to Change staff come in once a month and have an opportunity to go into each classroom to model for the teachers in the classroom. And then there's an online component that the teachers can use when they are not, when they don't have that person in there doing that for them. And it also allows for in-service onboarding and staff social emotional learning. We know more than ever, our educators and our staff in our buildings need also these opportunities for self-care, and this is rolled into this program. So this is, again, just a continuation with expansion of our current program taken out of our Title II programs.
Any questions? Director Klein-Jerome.
Walcott Elementary is not included on this list. Is that on purpose or is it just an oversight?
I would have to confirm that with Lisa Baxter. I'm kind of supporting her in this tonight. I'd have to get back to you on that. I believe up to this point, it is still gone through the way of what buildings are interested in this, what buildings would like to participate, and so for one reason or another, perhaps they have decided to opt out for now. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I can find that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Director Potts, do you have anything?
No, I've just been meditating and humming.
Perfect. Director Potts.
So there were 2 or 3 buildings that were participating in this, right? Was Jefferson one of them? And
Oh, in the presentation before?
yes,
Yes, I remember. I know Jefferson was. I can't remember the other buildings. I could probably look back and figure out who those other buildings were. But those were just examples of students. That was not. There were many more buildings that took part. And on the programming itself, the second, it actually identifies which buildings are in that contract that are participating.
again, I'm not up to speed on some of this, but I look at this, could this money be more wisely spent somewhere else? You're talking about the stress factor that students and teachers have in the classroom. I guess another way of relieving stress in the schools is to get our schools under control and not having students show more respect to the staff. And so to me, we should be looking at it from that standpoint. We've got to get our classrooms under control, and we've got to get some of our kids under control so that it isn't so as stressful for our staff. And so I guess I have a hard time spending ESSER dollars on something like this when I'd like to rather see it spent towards, for example, early literacy.
Yeah. Well, to clarify, this is not ESSER dollars. This is through our title funded dollars or Title II. So that's just a clarification. And I don't disagree with you. I think that this, I don't think it's an either or, that we do this or that. I think the goal that you said of a safe and supportive environment and respect and all that goes hand in hand with this work. So I think both of those layered on top of each other help to reach out to the goal that we all have for our kids and our schools.
Any other information or questions anyone needs before this moves on for a vote at the next regular meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on to subject 12.11, Infinite Campus Contract Extension.
Kevin?
Yes. If you all recall, Infinite Campus is our second largest used software behind our financial package, but is probably the most important software that we can have. This is our database for everything student. So this is a renewal of that student database. The Tableau is the mining, the tool mining to get the statistics that everyone sees on a regular basis. So Tableau and Infinite Campus work hand in hand. So this is just the 1-year renewal for Infinite Campus.
Director Beck?
Would it be financially beneficial to package a couple years together? Because I know this isn't something that we would change, anytime soon, as it's so deeply integrated into what we do. Would we get financial benefit out of a 2-year contract instead of a 1-year, or does it really matter?
They will only do 1 year at a time.
Okay. Hey, that works.
Director Kleindro?
Have we ever looked, is there something better out there, bigger, better? We've had Infinite Campus a very long time, I know.
There are only two players in this game. It's Power School, Infinite Campus, and going from one to the other, we'll take over a year to assess those. But Infinite Campus, I've had both as a staff member and as a parent. And Infinite Campus, in my perspective, is much better than Power School.
Okay.
Director Potts, did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Kevin, I apologize. I should have bundled these because you're up for the next one.
Forgot the bundle. This next one is Forecast 5. I have to clarify the description. I had two invoices at my desk and I flipped the explanation. We have two things with our forecasting that we come to you with every month. That's what this description is, but that's less than the $25,000 threshold. What this is the mapping of our students. So when we start looking at boundaries and student information from a mapping perspective, this gives us that information. So my description I put there was in error, but this is the renewal for that mapping software. And for bundling purposes, every Infinite Campus, every single night at about 4 a.m., it dumps the data of anything that's updated into this frontline product. So we have live data within 24 hours.
Director Gordon.
So according to this invoice, this already started 2 weeks ago and it's due before we have a chance to vote on it. So how does that work? If we were to be, what happens?
They dated it that, but it is a July 1st renewal.
That one doesn't generally happen too often because the board members do hammer down on that. Any other questions? Director Klein-Jerome.
This is not Forecast 5 that we're using for finances.
It's the same vendor, but it's a different product, a different module of Forecast 5.
Okay.
And Forecast 5 is now called Frontline.
And it's not tied together. This is the separate.
It works independently, yes.
And is this, okay. So the people that we were working with are no longer the people we're working with Forecast 5 or whatever this is?
Same people.
Okay.
There's different people that support the different product lines. The people that I work with on the forecasting tool are different than the people that support us here, but they all have their expertise. So same company.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next subject for discussion. 12.13, discussion about contract renewals. Turn over to Superintendent.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm incredibly proud of that this board and board superintendent relationship is that we bring contracts forth and ask good conversations, discussions, and then we vote on it at a regular meeting. We also put in their Friday reports. We put in information that allows our board to make good decisions. One of the things that we, as a cabinet, and Kevin, please feel free to jump in here as well, as a cabinet and also at the board table, we are getting feedback. Have you gone out for an RFP? You know, when we bring contract renewals together. Very similar to Infinite Campus. So what we would like to have is some feedback from the board, is what we would like to do, and particularly towards the end of the year, is somehow relay that information that we want to extend this contract. And sometimes we need to do that right away. We need to take action on that. We are doing our best to put a discussion and an action. But if the administration's recommending that we just renew a contract, is the board okay with that going on consent agenda, action item? Do you want to discuss before every time? Is a Friday report good enough? What kind of information would make you comfortable enough to take action on a contract extension? An example might be, we are in our second year of this product. Reminders that we just did a comprehensive review, put it out for RFP, and we're in our second year. Or yes, we are at the end of the life of this product. We will be going out for extension after this. Just kind of similar to those things that you heard tonight. Towards the end of the school year, as you can see, we're really heavy on contracts. And there are things that we believe are slam dunks. And then there are things that, yeah, we should probably discuss that. And so I wanted to get some feedback from the board before, as we're winding up this contract renewal season, just to kind of see where you guys were on that kind of information. So that's kind of where we're coming from. Any points to clarify there, Kevin?
Yeah, your points are great. The things to consider would be, if you don't want to do it in a format where it's a cabinet board meeting, what would an alternative be? For example, if you said, hey, if you briefed the finance committee on some of the items, maybe it would be something, if it's a renewal of a contract and it's less than 3% increase or a 5% increase or something like that, where you'd be comfortable still being informed and still approving, but not having to go through 1 week as a cabinet, the next week at a board meeting, and 2 weeks later as approval. You're putting together over a month's time to get contracts pushed through and approved. But I do think we need the point of being able to inform the board for approval. It's just trying to speed up that front end process.
Mr. President,
Director Potts.
I'm agreeable to streamlining the system. I have enough confidence in the people we have running the show to take care of that.
TJ's jotting it all down right now. So to summarize kind of what you're saying, Director Potts, you're along the lines of like the information on a Friday report and then voting on it at a meeting.
Yes, because as you pointed out, a lot of this stuff, as we're renewing stuff, we're not going to not renew it. We're not going to not have this service, this firewall, this student data programs. Some of these things are I consider them to be pretty pro forma. You got to renew the contract. This is the vendor we're going with. Boom.
Okay. Director Hayes.
I would be okay with the Friday report as long as there were no significant changes.
Director Gordon.
I would also be okay with the Friday report, with the caveat that anything involving people, like the juvenile court services, the SRO, things like that we still have an opportunity to discuss those with ample time before we have to vote on them.
Director Peck.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with a Friday report if it's something that we're just renewing, and we're not gonna, like Infinite Campus or whatever. I like Director Gordon's idea of not including staff positions in this type of thing, or even if they're not fully our staff, but something we're paying for in terms of staff. And then I guess, would the board have the ability to ask that something be discussed if it shows up in the Friday report and say, I don't really understand this. Can we put it for discussion? Okay. Yeah. I think that's fine.
And I think when we do Friday report, take action, there's always an opportunity to discuss there as well.
Right. That's
so
true.
that in my mind, when we do take an action, there's always an opportunity to discuss. And one of the things that I think the board, superintendent, cabinet have been doing a really good job of is when I have a question, I ask the question. That way the information can be given to all board members, that golden rule of no surprises. And so that can be a cadence as well. Here's a Friday report, here's a question I have.
Yeah. I think my only concern is that we make sure that we don't fall back into old habits. Oh, now it is. I know we had in the past, we didn't always get information and we were asked to vote on it the same day. And certainly this isn't suggesting that we go to that, but it's very incumbent upon board members to make sure that they are reading carefully those Friday reports. And so I just would want to make sure that we're monitoring that and making sure that all board members are making informed decisions. So, but yeah, I'm fine with that. I trust you guys to make good decisions.
The other point to make too is I still will review all the contracts first, and very few times is there a question on a contract, but once in a while there might be a couple things in there that I will beg some questions. I will still do that, and I will still make sure that either we have a standard format so everything that comes on a Friday report will read very similarly from contract to contract. Brennan and I were talking about this morning about if it was something like that, how would it look? We don't want to have things that are disparate from contract to contract, to have all the information in a consistent basis.
Director Poston, your thoughts?
Well, again, I think we just need to be careful that we don't get into old habits. I mean, we've been doing this for maybe a year now. And before that, it was kind of chaos. And there's some things that come before us that, for an example, the huddle. When I read that, I didn't know what the hell it was, So, it's some of those things. And then also, I'd like to get the feedback from the presenters, and a little bit more explanation. Now, that all takes a lot of people's time, and, time is precious. So that would be the only thing I would say, is that let's not fall back into what was going on, because then we haven't improved anything then.
Thank you. Director Klein-Jerome.
I do agree with Kent. I don't want to just be rubber stamping something. So I want to be careful there. I am one that reads every little detail of it. And Friday reports are nice, but sometimes I don't get to them till after the work hours. And then if my question gets answered not till Monday, I can't always look at it Monday. If I could get these things on Thursday, so I had time to process it and get my questions answered by Friday. I mean, I don't expect people to work on the weekend to answer my questions, but it's a timing issue. I would like to see it Thursday if it's just this kind of stuff, because I do read it all.
I'm kind of along the lines of Director Klein-Jerome. I think if it's something that comes up, it doesn't even have to be on a Friday. If it's like a Monday or something, about it, shoot an email out, hey, this is what's coming up. Are there any questions? And then if there's multiple questions, then we should do a discussion on it and stuff like that. Because again, I'm just a construction guy, so some of this stuff, I've caught up to it after a few years. I definitely knew the huddle thing. I've been messing with that for a few years. It's a pretty awesome app, but I think more information is good. Some of the stuff, I felt like we had people sat around here to have a discussion with us, and it was just things that we were just boom, boom, boom. But other things we do need to have discussions on.
for sure. So that's very helpful to me.
Did you get all the feedback you needed?
Yeah, I did. And I think that our team can navigate that. So as we are learning this cadence of how we're moving forward, I think there are things like if we, an example, if I were to put on a Friday report, Infinite Campus is an integral part of how we're moving. We reviewed it. We don't think it's necessary to move forward. The price is good. This is going to be on an action item for approve. Any questions? There are things on here that, like the esports, definitely needs a discussion, and so I think I have the information to navigate that now better. And I know that you guys will give me feedback if not. And specifically, we're talking about the contract extension time, to where our team is trying diligently to put together presentations for the discussion and for and you can see some people are staying late at night for something that is just kind of a slam dunk. And so I just want to make sure to be equitable or, mindful of their time. And I've got the feedback that I need here. So thank you for allowing the time on the board meeting to discuss.
Here's some more feedback for you. You used Infinite Campus as an example. There's only 2 systems, right? So if that would have been in there and said, hey, these are the 2 systems, it would take, what'd you say, Kevin, a year to integrate the next one? I think that's helpful too. Hey, it's going to take a year to do this and this many hours and things like that. I think that helps if, we know there's, because I know we've asked a few different times on some other things, hey, how many different providers are there and stuff like that. So I think that helps too.
Thank you.
Director Passion?
Well, this would be another example. You look at the discussion items and you look at the bread bid. Okay. All right. So do we need to be discussing that? But then when she brings up that we're raising it 10 cents and that's not going to cover our cost, then maybe there should be discussion on that. That's just one example. But
any other discussion on this? Director Potts?
I was just going to say, we can try this for a while and see if it works. And if it's not working or we're not comfortable with it, we can go back to doing things the way we're doing them now.
I've got good feedback.
Okay.
That's helpful. And plus it's something that the agenda committee, we can now say, what type of item is this? There's multiple reasons for doing this. There are things that we put on here, and our board is doing due diligence to ask the questions and look into. If there are things that can be routine and done in a Friday report, then that gives us the more brain power to focus on maybe another priority area. So I thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
And to round up to, if there's something that comes up that there's something where you don't feel good about, we can always defer it to another meeting and be able to pull that. So it's not like you must approve this. There might be a time where we say, let's pull that and get a little more information to prove it next time.
All right. Administrative reports.
Not at this time.
Board request. None at this time. Director Potts' favorite part. I'm going to start with him. Board reflections, Director Potts.
Okay. Mine is esports. That's like, I had no bloody idea. My brain was a bunch of geeks sitting in a room playing Mortal Kombat or something. Oh no, this I want to find out more about this too, because this was a revelation and in my reflection.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Kleindrill.
It's nice to see that we just don't think of ourselves just as a district, the Impact Life Blood Center. I mean, our staff, our students are looking at our community. We're not just tight in there, and the Lions Club as well. We are focused, yes, on our students, but also working with the Lions Club on this. I also, the eSport, $1.2 million in scholarships. I'm like, whoa, that's big time to play video games. So it's not just video games. I mean, they're getting scholarships for that. I'm with Director Potts. I was like, wow, that's a cool thing.
Director Postian.
I second what Karen just said.
Director Peck.
Yeah, mine was the two presentations we got demonstrating the power of community and the fact that we are a district, but we're also part of a broader community. And it reminded me to go make a blood donation this week because I'm due up.
Thank you. Director Hayes.
Actually, my blood donation is tomorrow, so I'm an active part of that. But I enjoyed the presentation as well as the in-depth discussion that we had regarding the data. I'm always excited to see how the kiddos are progressing. And with this 95%, I'm just kind of excited for the 3-year span to see how that impacts the students. So it's always nice to have updates on that.
Thank you, Director Gordon.
The school lunch funds. So that is just sticking in my head that because we've gotten so accustomed to meals being free, and so recognizing that that's not happening this year and knowing that she's willing to keep prices low for our students is awesome. But it makes me wonder, what can we do? Like, how do we get our PTOs involved in fundraising for that? Or what can we do more? So my brain's kind of spinning on that. So that's one reflection. The other is the esports. And just how completely humble Vandermeer is sitting there like, oh yeah, I know 1.2 million scholarships and, 150 students. And we're all just like, what? That was very cool. I like hearing stuff like that.
Thank you. Superintendent Schneckloff.
I would say I echo what's been said. One slight difference is, or one other item is the real positive relationship that we have with the city, and we've worked hard to build that. Lieutenant Smith, Sarah Ott, they are real champions of our district. They're there for us. They work hard for us, and they're trying to do the right thing all the time inside of our district. And so that has been built, because that was not there a couple of years ago. And I give a lot of credit of that to the board, because you guys command it.
I was going to roll that route because everyone else was doing esports. Good job. Good for you. I thought it was a very informative meeting tonight. To the agenda committee, I did tell y'all this was going to be a long meeting, and everyone was like, I don't think it'll be that long. I'm just saying it's 9 o'clock.
They're all long, Dan.
Unless Linda's doing it, right?
Yeah. Give her the gavel.
The other cool takeaway for the traveling trophy, I thought that was awesome that we actually came down to 2 and then had to vote again instead of it just being one blown out right away. So I do think that is awesome. I do apologize to Mid-City that we didn't have your video, but I thought it was awesome. And with that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.